Hello, and welcome to the package team's monthly Think Big session. We have a few items on the agenda. Oh, I see Ian is not here yet, but I bet he will be on any second. And I have the first agenda item, so we can buy him some time. I added in this month's milestone planning issue some thoughts on prioritization, and those changes made their way to our direction page as well. And in that note, I talked a little bit about, let me pull it up actually now. Things that we should stop doing for now, or not forever, but stop doing for now, things that we should keep doing, and some new things that we'll be doing in the coming months. Most notably, I would say that we have currently, for the near term, deprioritized some of the new package manager format integrations. That was done because we added in the past several months, Python, Composer, NuGet, Conan. We added 4 or 5 in the past several months. We've been seeing an increased amount of bugs for each of those, and the people that are using them are talking about use cases that are the next level of depth for each of those. They don't want to just have private hosted repositories. They want the ability to pull from the public registries. They want the ability to proxy and cache things. So rather than continuing to expand breadth and maybe open up some new use cases, we're going to instead focus on improving the usefulness of our existing integrations. So in addition to that, to help make that decision, I was looking at percentage breakdown of projects by programming language. So that was another key factor. And if you look at, actually, I don't have that chart here, it's in another issue, but essentially Ruby is about 5% of projects right now on GitLab, whereas Java, Node, C++, C#, all of our existing languages, we cover, I think, like it's over 90% of projects with our existing integrations. So I'm not in a rush to go and add new ones and add new complexity. So that's something I think we should stop doing, at least for now. Also, as we start to think about remote and virtual repositories, I'm not sure what the future usefulness of group and instance level endpoints will be, because that will sort of become arbitrary with the new design. So that's another thing that we'll sort of push back and hold off on. And then keep doing, of course, the zero downtime garbage collection. That is really important for cutting costs and also unlocks a ton of features for the container registry. Making sure that our existing integrations work seamlessly with CI, so that, you know, making sure that the job token works for publishing and installing packages for each format. There's other work that we could do there as well. And then measuring adoption and usage. I think we could continue to improve this. It's been really awesome being able to use data to make prioritization decisions when we have it. So keeping that going. And then some newer things that we'll be doing, we'll be focusing, especially in 13.2, on the cleanup policies. So really improving the image cleanup policy or tag cleanup policies. We'll moving the package registry to the core edition, which really the community is really excited about. And then the remote and virtual repositories. So in 13.2, Ian and I are going to be doing solution validation, and then we'll start breaking ground on that in 13.3. And then just thinking a little bit further down the road, I'm starting to think about limits and quotas for the package and container registry. And we did some investigation of that in last milestone, and then just thinking about more granular permissions for both the container and the package registry. So we'll be thinking about that probably in the last quarter of this year. That was a lot of words. Any comments or questions? Anything that I missed or any concerns? No, everything makes sense. Okay. On that note, I think, Ian, you have the next item, the design review.
Yes, very exciting stuff. So just like Tim had mentioned, we are working on the dependency proxy and expanding that out with remote and virtual repositories. And I'm a little winded because I just did the UX showcase 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to be talking about it again. This is super exciting. The cool thing that I wanted to share that was a really positive experience was that David got to work on the technical investigation at the same time that I was working on the design. And this was I think at least, a really fruitful effort. It allowed me to make sure the design and the back end were in harmony, as opposed to one being a reaction from the other. So just want to call out, that was such a cool experience. Today we're going to go over, my headphones are dying. Today is a great day. So today I would like to go over specifically the design review for the settings page on adding a virtual registry. So give me just one moment and I will share my screen. All right, and then I'm going to show you a bunch of screens. Okay, can everyone see the create a virtual registry screen? Awesome. So we have all done one of these design reviews before, so I'm not going to go over the rules again, but here's the high level view. When you go to the dependency proxy, there's a nice little button that says add a registry. When you click on that button, it will ask, do you want to add or connect a registry, hosted or remote, or if you'd like to create a virtual registry. When you select create a virtual registry, you'll be brought to a screen like this. I'm gonna take that second, let you all take a look at it. And then I have included the review order. So we're gonna start with Haley, she's in the hot seat today. Some open questions that I have in terms of what feedback I'm looking for. First off, does the UI feel okay? We're introducing new features and it needs to exemplify what GitLab looks like. So I wanna make sure we're on point there. As you're looking through what it takes to create a virtual registry, are there any questions you have for solution validation? Something you would like to ask your users as we're trying to build out this feature to understand if we're matching their needs or if there's an area we can expand on? And very specifically, does the mechanic of removing a registry or rearrange them make really obvious sense? This has a very big impact on how the API will function, so I want to make sure it's a very straightforward way to handle this. Does anybody have any questions before we get started and I start that 15-minute timer?
You just zoom a bit.
I can kind of zoom a bit. Is that an improvement or does it get worse?
Good.
If you hit like Command/, it'll get rid of the sidebars.
What?
One of those.
And slash. Not getting it.
Maybe it's the other slash, backward or forward. Whatever. I know there's a way to do it, and it's probably not worth fighting right now. Sorry.
I will fully admit, this was my first time using Figma officially. I played with it before, but I kind of have a sketch background, so the tool is new to me. If there aren't any questions, Haley, do you want to get us started?
Sure. So the one thing that jumps out to me is this checkbox here that says packages imported through this virtual repository registry must comply with security and scanning requirements. It would be good to have a link to further information at the very least, because I'm not, I don't necessarily understand from that the impact of checking or unchecking that checkbox. Let's see.
That was a perfect piece of feedback. One of the lessons we learned last time is if we're done with our piece of feedback is to call out the next person in line. That helps us move forward.
Okay, who is that?
Tim is up next. The order is in the agenda. I know
see.
it's kind of tricky.
I see. Tim, would you like to go next?
I think the question I'm having is, do you think that people will correlate dependency proxy and virtual registries as being like the navigation place and name, like the branding?
My guess is yes. If we kind of position the dependency proxy as the one place to go get all of your artifacts no matter where they are, then it would make sense that a tool that lets you pull from many different locations would be there. But that's just my opinion, and I've been staring at it for a long time, so I could just be convincing myself that that's the correct case.
Okay, on to Justin.
So I don't know enough about Registry to be able to comment thoughtfully about the workflow specifics. But I do know that you were wondering if users will understand that you can drag and rearrange things. So you were wondering what we might ask participants in the study. So you probably would definitely want to focus on that. I see that you added the icon for moving. I haven't seen that actually in other places on our app. Normally it's just the hover and you see the hand. So it'll be interesting if people get that. Then side note, you have add registry as a title case. I think that we actually do sentence case for buttons.
You are
Same
correct.
thing for create virtual registries, same thing. So,
That is a good call out. I think everything should be title case, so I'm at conflict
So
with
am I.
this.
I'm totally with you.
Yeah, I'll confirm what the official pattern is, and I'll make an adjustment if needed.
I also noticed you
You are-
got rid of the helper text that you had before to say you can drag these to rearrange. So I'd be curious to know if that's necessary or not.
For sure. I also have an open question around if users will recognize that reordering them here will actually impact the order that they are reviewed by the API. So that is a solution that that is a question I also want to ask during solution validation. If that is it for your one piece of feedback per round. David, I think, is next.
Yes, I think we might need a documentation link for the vanity URL. And also, I don't think you will be able to modify the base URL, which can be registry gitlab.com/package. But I mean, there is a base URL that would be fixed, and then you can choose any suffix you want or is available. So having just a one text field makes the user think that he can do whatever he wants, and I think that will not be the case.
That's a really good call out. I just want to confirm the part that's fixed for .com is going to be the registry.gitlab.com/package, and then after package / is what they can create for a vanity URL. Is that correct?
I'm not sure if we can use a new sub URL like registry.gitlab.com, but I guess it's possible. In the end, it will be, yeah, we will need the /package, that's for sure, and then any available suffix. But I have some doubts on the registry.gitlab.com if it's possible to do that, but I don't see why it wouldn't be the case. It's just that we would need to, I guess, start a process to register this kind of sub URL and saying, yeah, this is for virtual registries and such.
Gotcha. I'll make a note in the investigation issue for us to expand on this, and it may not even be in the MVC, so it might be warrant a whole issue to figure out the complexities in there for sure. All right.
So over to Nick.
Yes, so my question, I guess, is around the add registry button and what the intended behavior there is. So, for example, if you click that, does that open a... Oh, okay, right. Okay, so it allows you to select. So basically, the user will have to create these registries first before being able to create a virtual registry.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That was my original intention. I thought the idea of creating a remote connection inside of adding them to the virtual registry was just too much overhead. But that was an assumption on my part, to be honest. Do you think that's something that we should explore, is the ability to add them on the fly, or do you think that would just rock the boat too much?
I guess it depends what order you expect them to be created in. I.e., is a user going to create a registry first, or are they going to create a virtual registry first? If they're going to create the virtual registry first, then I think you need a way on that page of allowing them to create a registry. Otherwise, I feel it's unclear for the user to know that they have to have one of these things existing beforehand.
That's a really good call out. I will add to the solution validation about what our users expect to be the order of steps they need to complete before I actually have them go through the process that I have laid out for them. That's a really good call out.
I think Nico's next.
Yeah, so my question is around the package type dropdown. I see it prefilled with Maven. Do we want to prefill it? Is it, do we have data to choose what to prefill it, or is it just, for example, and we will not prefill it to let the user understand and choose?
I am so sorry, my headphones just died. Could you do the obnoxious thing and say that again?
Sure, no problem. So my question is around the package type dropdown. I see it prefilled with Maven. Do we intend to prefill it, and do we have data to choose the best for the users, or it's simply an example and it's not going to be prefilled in the real UI?
My intention was that it wouldn't be pre-filled. It would have just a default option of like select package type, and then you would get the drop-down list. Just because I don't know if we can actually tell ahead of time what the most likely option is going to be, or if that most likely option is so predominant that it would be a default option. So you could argue that almost every project includes NPM because they almost always have front end, but that's not really a guarantee, if that makes sense.
Yep. We start over, right?
Correct.
So Ailey, you're next.
I'm not good at design language, so I'm going to try to explain my feelings here.
Perfect.
So my very first impression of this was that there is, in the middle, there are these like 3 sections of boxes that are just all the way to the end. And it was just kind of a, I don't know, it was like a weird visual flow. Like it kind of grabbed a lot of attention, but I wasn't able to immediately pick out something that was important, if that makes sense. Like there's like this area and it grabbed my attention, but then I wasn't able to zoom in on something that was the most important part of that area, if that makes any sense.
That makes total sense. I'm trying to follow the pajamas guidelines on how to build forms, but I agree, it is a little hard to figure out what your most important action step is. I am working on setting up a meeting with Tori, who is kind of in charge of pajamas and is awesome at this kind of stuff, to ask what is the proper way to implement it compared to this. And I'll make sure to include that feedback of, we've already gotten some feedback saying that it's hard to know what to concentrate on. So that's a really good call out, and it is on the plan to be addressed.
All right, on to Tim.
Thanks. Ian, I was just wondering if you think that we should include any of the limitations of the virtual registry on here. For instance, like what the timeouts might be, or what's the max number of remote repositories that you could add, or anything like that, or is that best left to the documentation?
That is a good question. I have 2 different answers, which is always wonderful. I think for the timeouts and things like that are just universally set and we need to pay attention to, that belongs in the documentation. For something that may impact how you're filling out this form, then we should present it here. So for example, if we're only allowing 10 registries to be included in a virtual registry, maybe we offer up where it says there's 3 right now. Here in this moment, we say 3 out of 10. And just make it really blatant that this is the limitation here. So we should explore each of the limitations and decide that.
That makes sense. On to Justin.
So I think I'm going to piggyback on what Haley was getting at. When you get to this screen, you hit some sort of add virtual registry or create virtual registry button. Is that true?
Correct.
So do we have a pattern that when you do something like that and it creates a brand new form, that it will automatically put your cursor and focus in the first most important or starting block, I should say, of the input forms?
I don't know, but we
anything like that?
should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that
we'll
might
make
sort of
specials out
help
that.
the starting point.
Mhm.
Especially
No,
if you
for
got helper
sure.
text or something like that, it'll automatically select that and say start. Then you're using it to start typing. You know, they're gonna have to think about moving the mouse and all that.
That's
stuff.
a really good call out. The form was designed so that you need to fill out all the fields unless it specifically says optional. So if we highlight the first field, that might bring you into a focus and then allow you to navigate through, as opposed to kind of feeling blindsided or overwhelmed by how much there is.
Because it'll be blue highlighted, or the border will be blue, so that'll kind of give you the cue.
That's a great call out.
I don't know if we do it ever anywhere else, but we should.
We could always be pioneers.
That's right.
Looking at you, Nico.
One more thing to ask Tori about.
Perfect. Next up is David.
I'm sorry, I will go against the rule, but expanding on team feedback, there is not only one limit, there are two. One is the total number of registries, and the other one is the total number of remote registries. And there are two limits in play. So you might want to display both of them. And my feedback would be this list is not just a list, it's an ordered list. And the important word is order. It's really what the backend will ping when he has to look for a package. He will take the first one, check if there is a package, take the second one, if there is a package or not, take the third one. So I would emphasize on the order aspect of this list, perhaps adding order numbers like 1, 2, 3, or adding some order word in the title or something.
That's a really good call out. I know it's a weakness of the design is to really hammer home that the order is very important, and we don't really do that anywhere else in GitLab. So that is certainly an area we will explore. Up next is Nico. And I think we have time to wrap up the round. Sorry, next up is Nick.
Yeah, is the vanity URL really optional? Like, if you didn't put anything in there, what would happen? How would it know what the URL is?
David, I really don't know how it would act. This was a feature that was kind of thrown out as an idea. So one of the reasons it's included in the design is to really see what users think when they see it, and if it's really something that they care about. So I don't know. If you left it at blank, what would happen? I do think that we should probably show in this UI, if you don't include a vanity URL, this is the expected result. So it might be a good place to call out.
Can we generate one of those funny names like Red Duck, or I don't know, this kind of stuff, random funny names for it?
I'm down. I don't know how the rest of GitLab would feel about it, but I would be up for it. All right.
So yeah, on to Nico next.
So yeah, my question is, I kind of, while I was scanning the page, I kind of dislike the two optional field and the checkbox in the middle of the page, because I'm going require, then the next most important thing, it's like 4 tabs down. And do we have any plan maybe to hide them behind a collapse section, maybe not on creation, but on edit, for example? So if I come back to this, probably the only thing that I want to do is to change the included registry order, add and remove them. And that is like going to clutter the page.
That's a good call out. I might change the order, the way it's presented. So much to what you were saying, we start with the required fields, then you add the registries, and then there's kind of the auxiliary stuff. and that would kind of put the check mark at the end, which is where you would expect it to be a little bit more. Would just changing the order kind of address what you're thinking?
Yeah, with the option that it may bring the optional field out of the fold with a lot of registries.
All right. Well, that is time. Thank you, everyone, for providing this really great feedback. I have been staring at these a little too intently, so I'm missing some of the basic things you guys are presenting. I really appreciate your feedback. Any final questions before I stop sharing my screen?
I'd like to answer the feedback from Nick about the vanity URL. So on the technical investigation, the idea was to reuse a similar URL as the one we have for project packages. So you have a fixed URL, then you use the project ID. So here we would be using the virtual registry ID. And then Steve suggested that people will not remember this ID, which it's understandable. So we might want to have a second, an optional vanity URL that would being the same endpoint. But at this stage, since you are creating the virtual registry, I don't think we can display the final URL since we don't know what is the ID. But we can show some examples, and we can show it once it's created in the details page, I guess.
I had one more. Thank you, David. I had one more question. What about permissions? Do you think that we should show them anything there, and who will have permission to the virtual registry? Because I think the way it'll work is that anybody that's within the group that they're creating it with read access will have access to it. So should we state that explicitly? Because it may not be clear that that's how it works. I don't know.
On the investigation, well, the technical investigation issue, I guess I choose the simple path, which will be using the user has to send his token, so personal access token. We will be identifying the user and check if he has access to those registries that are included in the virtual one. But that would be only for hosted registries. But I think someone, and I don't remember who, suggested perhaps we could have a deploy token there. We could set up a deploy token so that anyone using this virtual registry will be using the deploy token. And so we will not have any issue about permissions, because what you can have if you check the user permissions is that if you imagine that you have a virtual repository with 3 hosted registries, and the first user has access to all of them, and the package is on the first one, so everything it's okay. And the second user doesn't have access to the first one, so the backend will check the second one and the third one, and if the package exists there, it will get a package from not the same project, which is not the perfect situation.
That's an interesting option. So you're saying we could give a deploy token or something to give access, so that they could be they'll have access to everything.
Yeah, the idea was to, on this screen, when you create the virtual registry, you also choose which deploy token you want to use for all the accesses. And this way you just solve all the issues about permissions on when users will pull packages.
And that solves anonymous access too. Like if you wanted to give access to someone that's not in the group, that's not even in your company, or a GitLab user necessarily, they could still access it.
Yeah, well,
they have to be a GitLab user at least. Yeah.
There are 2 levels of access, I guess. The first one would be, do you have access to the virtual registry? And then do you have access to the included registries? the deploy token thing would be for the included registries, so that you don't have to check around if all your users have the proper permissions on the included hosted registries. You just use a deploy token and that's it. But then for the virtual registries, I don't remember what we suggested on the investigation issue. I guess it's a new permission, perhaps.
I think you were saying, yeah, new permission model.
Yeah, so a new permission, like similar to what we have as red packages, here would be red virtual registries.
Yeah, that the permissions thing is, you just explained it and it made sense, but it's still confusing to me, I think, because there is the two levels. And then I shared something in the investigation issue that's going on with NPM where if you try to download a packet with the job token, it's not working, versus if you try to do it as an anonymous user, it does work. And that's because anonymous users get read read package, but if you're logged in and don't have access to the group, then you don't have that. So that
Yeah, that's a subtle bug, I guess. If you are a logged in user, you don't have access to packages on public repositories, and it doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. Okay, but that's just a bug. We could resolve that at a different time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all again for the feedback. There are many more screens because this is a whole category that we're expanding. So if you have a moment, I would really love it if you went to the issue that's in the agenda, looked at the designs and provided feedback there. I am addicted to feedback, the more the better. So please, you're all welcome to do so. The only other agenda point I had was, I was wondering what everyone thought around the idea of utilizing some of our Think Big session time to give demos of some of the stuff that we've built. I don't have a lot of follow-up because I always share everything that I'm working on in Think Big, so it's really selfish and easy for me, but I'm just wondering if you as a team would think it'd be beneficial to see how something is being built or an actual implementation running and how it's set up, and use that as a way to have a conversation as we expand outwards.
There's already a CIC monthly demonstration meeting.
And also I feel that they may like remove a lot of space from ThinkBIG discussion, because demo tend to be either lengthy or with a lot of questions. So
That makes sense. What about anyone's like Factorio status? That would be useful to demo maybe.
I mean, I didn't build I didn't build this factory knowing that people would look at it. So no, absolutely not.
I think that's all the items on the agenda. Did anyone have anything else before I stop recording?